The world around us is hostile to the Word of God and to biblical values, but we are called to be salt and light, to stand for truth in a decaying culture. We are not called to run from the fire, but be willing to step into the fire. God has placed you at this time in history on purpose and for a purpose. Join us as we get better equipped to address civics and culture from a biblical worldview. Welcome to Into the Fire, powered by Dream City Church.
Today's topic is elections have consequences. And I'm joined today by my friend Leisa Brug, who is a VP of Advocacy at Center for Arizona Policy and CAP Action as well. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm so excited for this. We were saying we could talk for 6 hours. But
I know it.
We won't.
We could.
We won't bore you with all of that. But we could talk about so many things today. We're going to narrow it down a little bit. But just before we get into that, if you could just introduce yourself, who you are, family, background, whatever you want to share with us so people kind of have an idea of who you are.
Gosh, that would take forever too. Right. I feel like I've been all around the world 3 times, but it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. And I'm originally from California. I was born there.
You're one of those. Huh?
Yes, it's kind of a story we hear a lot here in Arizona.
Right.
But most importantly, called to the Lord when I was 14 years old at a Youth for Christ campus life trip. Wow. Was raised in church, but never had a personal relationship. Didn't quite get that until my eyes were open to that. And wow, did it change my perspective on everything. Yeah. I was going to be a news reporter. I was going to be famous. And I did end up going into journalism and majoring in that, but God turned it around and used it for advocacy in a totally different way. So kind of interesting how that works. Yeah. Central coast of California, I'm ranch raised. I'm a rodeo girl. We've rodeoed professionally. I still ride.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of Wranglers and boots on the weekends. And so that's that background. Professionally, like I said, I was a news reporter when I started. And then I went to the dark side. And my first legislative job was in the California legislature up in Sacramento in 1997.
Wow.
I can't believe how fast that's gone by. But through the years, I have gone back and forth from the policy side, even the communication side, and the political side, which was running campaigns and things of that nature, all the way through up to running a U.S. Senate campaign in California and a lot of other campaigns. And on the off seasons, I'm always pulled back into the legislative side.
Yes.
So it's kind of a perfect place to land here at Center for Arizona Policy.
Sounds
because
like
I wear 2 hats. As you mentioned, we do legislation, we do the whole legislative side, but we also do the political side through CAP Action. So I get to put my political skills and strategy to work and fundraising skills to work for that as well.
Yeah.
And why? Well, you hit it at the top. It's because elections have consequences.
Yes.
All the legislation that we want to do and that we could ever do and that we do can't happen if we can't get things signed into law.
Right.
If we don't have the right people in office promoting what we're pushing out. It's so important to hold those majorities in Arizona.
Yes.
Arizona's a fickle state.
We really are.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like the Wild West.
It is, and I like that about it. It's
right.
like fighting words. You talk about, anything legislatively, especially water in Arizona, and you're fighting all of a sudden. But we have held the legislature, the Republicans, which I would be my pro-life majority, have held the legislature for a long time, but we tend to wobble on top. We will go back and forth between a Republican or a Democrat. Unfortunately, nothing personal. It's just that I can't get a Democrat to sign meaningful laws.
Pro-life legislation, right.
Or anything to do with families from a conservative perspective.
Right.
So we don't just do life laws beginning to end, but a lot of the in-between.
Right.
And so it's really difficult. So we work really hard to keep the legislature so that we can at least get good bills through.
Right.
It is harder to get them signed into law, but it doesn't mean that the debate isn't important.
Right.
Even if they don't get signed into law, we're going into committees, we're having meetings, we're doing stakeholder things.
Right.
Promoting the ideas, because education is really important in these things. And sometimes you can change hearts, which then changes minds.
Right. And so you're playing a long game in that sense.
Very much so right now.
Yes.
So when I first came to Arizona, I was brought here by former Governor Jan Brewer.
Okay.
And I was the only person she plucked out of California, and that was a complete God thing because I never met her before.
Wow.
So through connections and friends and just work I had done, I got called out and hired. So I was one of her policy advisors. Those were the good old days,
Right, when it was different.
Yes, we had the majority in both houses. We also had a Republican governor. It doesn't mean that we don't infight. Gosh knows we do, but a lot more successful things that we would be working on got signed into law.
Well, and that kind of ties into what we're talking about today, because I've been involved in with Center for Arizona Policy as a just following and learning. I always said that's how I got started, was following Kathy Herod around the Capitol and just learning what she was doing. Literally, I knew nothing, and I just started following.
The master.
This was 25 years ago, and just following and learning that stuff. But at that time, through those years, again, and what you're talking about with CAP is that it's not a Republican Democrat. It's a policy. You're trying to find family-friendly policy that promotes education, that promotes family values, that supports life, that parental choice, those kind of things.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, it's become, and it used to be, I think, where you did have more crossover at some point, but anymore it's not the case. It's very partisan.
It is.
When it really shouldn't be, because those things are good for society. They're good for families. But all of those pro-life laws, which we're going to talk about in a second, that are now being just demolished, where I was sitting in those hearings and praying and getting people to write letters and write to their legislators and committee members and things to get those things passed.
Right.
And so it's really difficult to watch all of that crumbling right now for me personally, because, and again, I just had a really tiny piece of it,
well,
but
you're
I feel
an important
connected.
piece. That's part of the process.
You
is having
feel
people like you
invested.
advocating for these things. So.
Yeah. And you feel really invested and tied to those things. All of those, the parental consent and informed consent and all of these laws, right? That we're going to talk about in a minute. But those things were being passed over years and years of kind of.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about how that happens as well. But just really quickly to start with, Prop 139, we did talk a lot about it on this show when the election was happening and telling people to vote no on it and trying to spread the word. And it unfortunately, tragically passed in November. And we are now seeing just the downward spiral that's happened because of that. And I think a lot of people didn't totally understand what they were voting for. They bought the sound bites and the little pieces of information that were happening. But Prop 139 meant that we have abortion basically on demand with no limits in it, in our Constitution. And the ways that this is your public service announcement. Do not vote for any proposition unless you know what it does.
Right.
Because it's so hard to get rid of them in Arizona. So I always tell people, don't sign it. Don't sign to get it on the ballot. Don't vote for it unless you are 1,000% sure that you know what it's going to do, because they're next to impossible
That's
to get
good
rid
advice.
Oh,
Good
that's
advice.
like my mantra that I do, and nobody, because it's not something that people talk about, but we really do need to have better awareness. But anyway, so Prop 139 passed, and we're seeing sort of the repercussions of that. Can you give us an update on what's going on right now because of that passing?
Well, yes, and to backtrack just for a second, I think the reason that my heart and mind and soul can handle these things is because I worked in the California legislature, so it looks very much the same to me. As a matter of fact, way better even now than it did then.
Yes.
So I think that I'm able to kind of have thick skin and kind of trud through these things. But of course, as you know, I was a campaign manager with a whole bunch of other wonderful people working with us on that. You were part of that coalition to defeat that proposition, and we did not. It has major ripple effect. It means systematically every pro-life law that you were speaking of Kathy Herod and everybody that worked with her put on the books over the last 25 years or so are systematically being removed from state law. And those are those parental consent, those are those protections for women, the safety procedures, the safety standards, the all the rules and regulations. And it's not just in the law that, a statute. It's not just that. It's also in rulemaking within agencies, how they talk about abortion now, how it's rolled out.
How it's promoted on the website,
how it's promoted
the government,
everywhere.
governors, yeah.
So systematic change. And that's what you said. Yes, elections have consequences. And in this case, very consequential ones.
Yes.
As you know, there were some portions of the law that were taken to court after Prop 139 passed. That was a good effort, very common sense things that should have stayed in. For example, 24-hour waiting periods, doctors, sonograms, things to make sure that the woman is safe, that the pregnancy isn't ectopic or something that might affect, just eliminating the child. Also, the abortion pills, chemical abortion pills through the mail, that's a safety precaution. That was supposed to be done through a doctor so that the woman was cared for.
Right.
Those things have been now wiped out. And so those were just two things, or there were a few things within that lawsuit. That is an overall example of how now systematically they're trying to just get rid of everything that has to do with anything pro-life in our statutes. And it's having detrimental effects for women and obviously babies, but detrimental effects, because I would think we were talking on the phone a while back, and I was telling you that about, I think it's upwards of 11% of women who take the abortion pill now, which accounts for roughly 60+% of all abortions now, have to go to the hospital within 30 days after taking that. So there are harms being done to women based on this kind of free-nilly, get an abortion through the mail, that are just going to continue to get worse because they keep taking these restrictions off and making it way too accessible, way too easy. And for them, that's a good thing because they want to promote abortion, up to wherever. It's not nobody else's business but your own. Right. But women are being harmed.
Yes.
And we always forget the victim, right? We forget the baby, which is the ultimate victim, but we also have young women and girls who are putting their lives in danger and therefore not talking to anybody either. So now they're alienated and sick.
Right. And not being told anything.
Right.
I have, someone that I was gone through our post-abortion group that got pills in the mail and was told nothing and ended up in the ER, but was not given any information, no exam, no nothing. And this is what we're talking about. They're trying to make that more accessible.
Yes, one of our pregnancy resource centers, I had a gentleman call to order them just to see what would happen, because we also have a trafficking issue in this state that Center for Arizona Policy works very hard on combating as well. So it was like a question. I'm like, how easy is it, even if it's a mail, to get these? And he got them within 3 days with 0 questions, 0 doctor calling him, and 0 follow-up.
Right. So he can just give them to a victim and no one knows. And there's no medical
exam. It could be your child.
Right.
It's important for us to step back and think about these things.
Absolutely.
And sometimes, parents aren't the first people that our children come to. I mean, sometimes our children are in harm, and with the trafficking issue, that's a big deal.
Or even just an abuse issue.
Yes.
If you have, coaches and other leaders that maybe are abusing a minor.
And we've seen it.
We have seen that.
Yeah.
And that's a similar situation where they can be giving them, sometimes that pregnancy is what alerts somebody that something is happening. And if that's being taken off the table as a way to expose a trafficking situation or an abuse situation, it's putting girls at harm.
Absolutely.
In a greater risk of harm. And I just want to share before we get on to some of the policy things, you had a couple of statistics about who voted for Prop 139?
Yes. This is what kept me up at night.
Yes, it does me too.
And working so hard. And I think a lot of us have had to come up with ways to rationalize what happened so that we can continue in this work. Because it was quite disheartening when that happened. But internal polling, of course, that we're doing, because this was a very well run campaign. But when we polled, 40% of Republicans were voting yes. very hard to steer hearts and minds
to take restrictions off of abortion, right?
for
unrestricted abortion. Yes.
And the hardest part for me was overwhelmingly people of faith, even evangelicals who were polled, were voting yes.
Right.
Yeah. So that's hard. And how did that happen?
Right.
One of the ways that I try to explain it to people is for years and years and years, I used to debate this in the kitchen with my dad when I was in high school, okay?
Yeah.
Roe versus Wade.
Yeah.
He said it'll never be overturned. And here, I'm always the, half glass full type of a person. I said, but, and I would argue with him. Well, lo and behold, it did. But we as pro-lifers fought for a long time for that to happen. So we were always on this offensive position. And the other side was on a defensive position. They had their coalitions built. They had their talking points totally memorized. They had this all over the United States to try and protect something. So when it, boom, all of a sudden went away, we were flat on our feet.
Right.
And we were unprepared to deal with how prepared they were because they had been defending something for so long and spending so much time, energy, and money into educating people on their point of view.
Right.
We were caught off guard on that, and let that be a lesson to us never to let that happen again on any policy issue.
Right.
But we don't make excuses here. We also have to understand that you and I are from a generation that I'm a good example. I got pregnant when I was just finishing up college. I had family member even offer to give me money to pay for an abortion because I was told, you were told, you're throwing your life away.
Right.
You can do all things, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have got to go do something with yourself in this world. This is going to hurt you. This is going to hold you back.
Right.
You're so good at what you do. You don't let this stop you.
Right.
And we were sold a lie.
Yes.
And we also, there was Roe v. Wade, so it was kind of like this ceiling that we felt like we didn't have to worry about as much, right? But everything came crashing down.
Yeah.
And I'm perfectly an example of that. That's a lie. But we bought into it. A lot of my friends bought into it. People bought into it. Yeah. But I raised my baby by myself until she was 7 before I married.
Yeah.
And it enhanced my life. I can't even tell you how much more centered I got.
Right.
It was very much, it was a come to Jesus moment. Let me tell you.
Right.
Yes, it was. Recentered and refocused, and that kid is a graduate of West Point.
Right.
She's a captain in the Army. She's an intelligence officer. She is making a huge impact on the world. What would the world be without her?
Right.
And that's what we need to be talking about.
I agree. Yeah.
And that's the generational thing that we got sucked into. We just got back from the National March to Life. We took 20 pastors. We took a bunch of other CAP supporters. We had a blast.
It's such a great event.
It was. And it was so educational, too, because we did a whole lot of other things as well, all centered on life that week, which was really nice. One of the biggest impacts that I have taking away from it was Gen Alpha and Gen Z.
Yes.
The millions lost. 1 in 5 Gen Alphas aren't here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Upwards of 15%
Yeah.
of the Gen Z aren't here.
Yeah.
That has ramifications that go beyond even the spiritual.
Right.
That's societal.
Yeah.
Other countries, we've seen what happens in those situations when you don't. It's societal. It affects every bit of everything, all the way to the economy at the end. Now, those are great talking points. I always want to bring it back to the spiritual, and that God wants these children on earth for a reason. He created them for a purpose, and we're getting rid of them. But these kids were majorly they just made my whole trip.
Yeah.
They were out in force. They had T-shirts on saying, "My generation is being destroyed." I was like, bravo to you.
Yeah.
And let that be a lesson to me and to you and to people in other generations.
Yeah.
These are our future leaders, and they have seen the light.
They have. And
it's so encouraging.
it is encouraging. Yeah. And I definitely, those generations, both Gen Alpha and Gen Z.
I just love them.
A very strong pro-life segment in there. And they know that they're not being deceived by the rhetoric, right?
Well, look, you can say what you want to say, but technology has gotten us to a point where you cannot deny life anymore. Right. We see it, we hear it, and it's proven scientifically with technology and things that I didn't have. I was walking on faith.
Right.
And it's true. So I'm grateful for that. And I think that that's part of our mission now is educating them, talking to them, being very open, encouraging them, and creating leaders.
It's also easier to see those stories of the abuse and the devastation and the things that happen because of it, because those are more available as well as the life side of it. So with this, life is one of the areas that we have policy, but what does that look like for you at Center for Arizona Policy? With I think people forget that state government happens. This is like my fight in life is to just keep reminding people that we do have a state government that happens in Phoenix, right? You can go down to the Capitol, you can see what's happening. But there are so many bills that come through that some of them are wonderful, some of them are terrible. And so what does that look like just kind of at a high level for you guys, what you do on that policy side at Center for Arizona Policy?
Well, as you know, anything to do with families, marriage and family, life, and religious freedom. That's who we are.
School choice, too.
School choice falls within that family category and also sometimes that religious freedom category. So anything that encompasses that. I often say that, and because I'm chuckling when you're saying people don't understand what goes on. Well, one of the reasons is because there's two things you never want to see made. One is sausage.
Right.
And one is the law. Okay? It's a gross process.
It is.
And it's like a lot of things that go into it and ebb and flow and duck and gnaw. That's making the law. Yeah. But there is a legislative process. I was kind of laughing when I was thinking about it. Remember the Schoolhouse Rock?
Yeah.
You know, a bill that goes to Washington and it becomes a bill. I encourage people to actually look that up and watch that again. You will go, oh, wow, I learned that when I was in sixth grade and I didn't even know it.
Just a bill.
Yes, going up Capitol Hill. Yeah. Exactly. So the easiest way to say it is that it is a complicated process, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Breaking it down, you have an idea or a group has an idea. They go talk to a sponsor who is somebody in the legislature, whether it's a senator or a House of Representatives, a representative, and present that to them. And if they think that's a great idea, then language is created to enact that change. Okay, it goes through a committee process or two, and a couple more. It ends up on the floor of one side. And if it's good enough there, it goes to the opposite chamber and has to go through the exact same process. Yeah. So everything that happens on the House side has to happen on the Senate side and vice versa before a bill can ever go up to the governor for a veto or a signature.
Right.
So that's the nutshell of it.
Right.
But it is complicated, and I do encourage people to actually look that up and sing along, and you will learn again what you
go down to the Capitol.
Forgot you knew.
Go down to the Capitol and watch it happen. It's really amazing.
The
see that process.
Capitol's open to the public. It's your house. This is your tax dollars are paying for these people and for this process to take place. There are galleries in both the House and the Senate. You're welcome to go to watch anything on the floor be discussed or voted on. You're also welcome to go to any committee hearing that is on a topic that you may or may not be interested in. It's still good to go and see how it works.
To see that process. That was where I was talking about following Kathy Harrod around the Capitol. Yeah. But that literally, though, that's what I did, right? I showed up at these committee hearings. I went in and sat in the gallery and watched things voted. And you really do learn how that process works. Yeah. And you get a feel for how it, what the terminology is. Because it's just like anything else. It has its own language. Words that you wouldn't know what they mean, but once you see it in action, you get a feel for what those things are.
And there's a decorum, and you get to it's actually kind of enlightening that it works so well. And the reason is because there is decorum. There are rules. You're
not allowed to create a ruckus.
To happen.
Because they will boot you out of there.
Oh yes, they will.
If you and even things like clapping, you're not allowed to clap. They expect it to be, which is good, and it makes it more civilized and keeps that process flowing. Yeah. And so then you guys help craft legislation, you help find those sponsors, you help provide testimony, find people who can speak on things, both for things that you guys are promoting and also things that you are opposing, right? And so there's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that people are not aware of, which is good to kind of get a feel for how that all happens too. But can you give us an example of something that you guys are working on right now that it's a good piece of legislation that, just an example of something?
And some years we have more that we are directly proposing and working on and working with the sponsor to move through.
Well, it's difficult right now because the governor vetoes everything. So everything family friendly, right? So she doesn't veto everything, but the things that are that we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Life, promote life, protect parental rights. Those things are all she's very opposed to all of that.
Well,
for the most part.
But there are family issues that everybody kind of agrees on. There are what we're calling in the news now, those 80-20 type issues and things of that nature. There's a couple that we are working on that we really believe that she'll sign into law, and we're working very hard. Actually, one of them is in committee tomorrow.
Okay. And what is that?
And that is the App Store Accountability Act.
Okay.
Putting parents back in control of what their kids download onto their iPhones or their Androids. Putting in age verification for downloading of the apps based on what content is going to be provided through those apps. Parents need to be in control of that. There's a lot of messiness going on with that right now, as you probably know. I mean, it's in the news every day that big tech is being, sued for one thing or another, and for good reason. A lot of them are very good reasons. This just puts parents in control. It also allows app stores not to be able to try and get into a contract with somebody under 18, which is illegal.
Right.
So it's very common sense, but you'd be amazing at the pushback we get from some of the big tech players on this very common sense bill. But it just puts parents in control. Age verification, can't get into a contract with a kid. Make sure that the content that app is rated for is acceptable for that age limit. I mean, just real common sense things.
Right, things that should be happening. Yeah.
I can't imagine anybody vetoing that once it gets to the desk. It's that process, that sausage-making process to get it there.
Yeah.
That can be difficult. And so we're working on that now. Another one is we have a sex buyer penalties bill that is bipartisan. We brought it forward with it's a big stakeholder. It's certainly not just CAP. And it's to try and go at sex trafficking in a way that we think will actually make a real impact. And that is supply and demand.
Right.
If you get rid of the demand, then you can help get rid of the supply.
Yeah.
But for a long time, we've been trying to kind of do it the other way around through a lot of really amazing programs and rehabilitation programs for victims of trafficking. But we have to cut down on the demand. So this currently, as it is in law, it's a misdemeanor basically for a buyer. It's kind of a slap on the wrist. There's diversion programs they can go to. They can plea things down. So by the time somebody really gets a slap on the wrist, it's probably their second or third time of getting caught. I don't know. It depends on the case.
Right.
So we want to make that a felony first offense because we think that will make people think.
Yeah.
I mean, a misdemeanor is one thing. A felony is a whole other thing.
Right.
You can lose your job. You can lose a lot of your freedoms. And then there's a fee that they're going to have to pay that's automatically going to be going into these trafficking programs to help these women get off the street and help rehab their lives. So it's kind of a holistic bill, but it cracks down on the buyers and has something in there to help with the victims as well. So we just think that is a great bill. And so far, there's now a mirror bill by a Democrat in the Senate.
Okay.
And so we think she'll sign that. So even if it's difficult and in times where we can't necessarily get everything we want, we will work on these things where we can get these wins.
Yeah.
And I don't know what a lot of people say, but I'm not afraid to give people a win and thank them for doing something that's right.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, that's what this is about. It's about families. It's about godly values. It's about protecting victims. So whatever we can do to move that ball down the road, we're going to do it, and we're going to give credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
And so it's not always bitterly partisan.
Yeah.
It can be.
Right.
But it's not always that way, and it doesn't always have to be that way. We can get to solutions working together sometimes.
Right. Right. Well, it's a kind of a mixed bag. You have things where it is very contentious. And then other
Exactly.
things, yeah.
Right. I mean, there's some things that we support because we don't only just, do the legislation, find sponsors and push legislation. We want to come alongside our pro-life Republican lawmakers. We want to come alongside them in any kind of help that they need. So we're just a resource.
Yeah.
If they're in a meeting and somebody brings something up and it's a statute,
need an answer, yeah.
they can email or text or call, and we will get right to work getting that for them so that they have the information that they need. Yeah. So we just want to come alongside them as well. It's not always just what is our agenda and how can we get there,
Right.
and who can get us there.
Yeah.
It's let's collectively as a team help each other. How can we come alongside you and help you be successful?
Yeah, which is great.
So.
That's wonderful. And because there is so much, and sometimes you need those answers, like, right.
Yes, sometimes I do.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, I've been in those situations.
It's good to have
too,
a resource
where
at it.
It's good. Like, I need this in the next 5 seconds. What is that answer? But yeah, it is good to have that team. And I do feel like there are a lot of organizations in Arizona that we all worked. I mean, you and I have parts of different organizations.
Absolutely. Yep.
And there's a lot of collaboration, a lot of people that work together. And those things are important that if we're going to make Arizona better.
Yep.
To have that and work together, and you don't have to agree with people on everything to work with them, because you were talking before about infighting. There's so much infighting; it drives me absolutely bananas. But again, we don't have to agree on. No two people are going to agree on everything.
Exactly, and I try to say
matter
that
what.
even in let's just go back to the pro-life community.
Right.
Everybody in there at the end of the day wants the same thing.
Right.
And I just try to remind myself that all the time.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there might be tactics something I say that somebody doesn't like. There might be something they say and I go, do the dog sideways,
Right.
like, whoa, I would not have said that like that. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we're all in a coalition. We need to work together.
Right.
The end goal is the same.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, personalities do not matter.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
we have to remember what God wants, right? This is the end of the day is save babies and protect mothers.
Yeah.
Protect women from the harms of abortion, which are aplenty.
Right.
So if we just can keep the
Keep
beacon
going in that direction.
just keep the lighthouse out there and
Yes.
remember that.
Yeah.
I think we're going to
better
be.
off,
I
yeah.
think we're going to be successful in the future by doing that.
Yeah, so the final thing that I want to talk about, which kind of ties in with all of what we're talking about here, especially with elections have consequences, is this is an election year.
Yes.
And this is one of those election years that people don't pay attention to a lot because it's a midterm. They don't, I always say that the primary election for a midterm is the lowest voter turnout.
And you're not
of
wrong.
Anything.
Right.
It's pathetic, the turnout. But on the flip side of that means that if you have a 30%, 35% turnout for a primary in an off year,
Right.
in a midterm election, if we can activate people within our circles to vote, we have more of an impact. That impact is magnified because there are fewer people
Right.
actually participating. So there's that, again, glass half full. I'm one of those people too, chronically. But the midterms are way less, people don't pay attention to them. And it goes back again to why state government is so, so vital, right?
It's true.
One of the things I keep saying, and I think that I was going to ask you this question when we were talking about policy, because you were talking about the good things, but there's also a lot of bad things. I know, I'm using that term loosely,
I understand.
but terrible things that are being proposed to be put into state law all the time. I had been saying, and now, this is a little bit of a moot point with all the stuff happening on the legal side with 139, but that if the side that hates Christians, hates school choice, hates all that, could get a hold of everything, ESAs would go, school choice would go, our school system of like charter schools, homeschooling, all of that, they would start putting restrictions on all of that and get rid of all the pro-life laws, because those are the things that they seem to target the most, in my opinion, from what I've seen. Mm-hmm. It's anything to do with parental rights. They don't want parents in control of their kids' lives. They want the government, especially whether it's healthcare or schooling, and then also the life issue that I have seen over the years, just this constant barrage of bills coming forward that it's like, what are you even talking about? Because this is terrible.
Yeah, it's ugly.
It's ugly.
It's a nightmare, and it should keep you up at night if
Right.
you're a Christian. And that's just, sometimes I just say it like it is. It should keep you up at night.
Yeah.
Especially a presidential midterm, when the president in power, the midterm elections historically don't go well.
Right.
So if they already historically don't go well, and you still choose not to show up, then you're just giving it away.
Right.
This is a very important election. The primary is important, of course. Of course, at the end of the day, we just want the strongest candidate to come out of that can beat the person in the general that they're going up against. For us at Center for Arizona Policy Action, now, other hat, put my other hat on, we are really posturing to help defend 7 districts, basically we call swing districts in the state, that we either have to defend, but there's a possibility of a pickup, or there is an actual pickup that we think opportunity.
Yeah.
And so those are kind of what we're concentrating on for the general election, because you hit it on the head. All I would have to do, and I'm happy to do it, is get you a list of all the bills that the left wants to have passed right now in the legislature. Now, luckily, because of that sausage-making thing I told you about, there are committee chairs, and those bills don't even get heard.
Right.
Because we have pro-life committee chairs.
Right.
In every committee right now.
Right.
You lose that, every one of those bills gets a hearing.
Can you give an example of one of those terrible bills, just so people have an idea?
Oh, complete unrestricted abortion. Anything that has to do with the Bill of Rights, the Parental Bill of Rights in Arizona. These are just examples of every statute that is a pro-life statute. Notification of parental consent is on the chopping
fourteen-year-old
block.
could go get an abortion without you knowing
They would
about
love
it.
that.
They would right.
Because
Those are the kinds of
they
things.
would say that's her right.
Right.
And that, the parent is being abusive by not getting her the health care that she needs. So
Or your
everything
13-year-old should be able to go get a mass. That's getting a little less popular, but the trans, getting put on puberty blockers and put on wrong sex hormones and those kind of things. That's been pushed for a long time as well, trying to keep parents out of that decision.
Yeah.
So there's so many
And those
things
things are much, much harder to defend or oppose if you have a legislature that is, in favor of them, and especially if you have a legislature that's in favor of them and a governor that will sign them into law. There's a lot of words I could use right now. I'm just going to stay PG.
But we could be looking at, Oregon or California kind of, or New York, right? Those kind. That's
a slippery slope.
It is.
So defending means voting.
Yeah.
Voter urgency. The president's not going to be on the ballot.
Right.
There's a lot of folks that are really motivated by the top of the ticket or the presidential ticket.
Right.
When they're not on, that's one of the reasons historically that midterms are low propensity and people don't turn out.
Yeah.
And whoever's in power tends to do horribly. And this goes for both parties. And it's because we win and then we sit on our laurels and we think everything's
I don't have to do anything now.
And it's just untrue. But regardless of what goes on federally, you hit the nail on the head. The state is where it matters. I mean, we are a republic.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can't rely on Washington to make all our decisions for us, to take care of us. And gosh, I wouldn't want that, would you?
No.
It's just too fickle for me. Plus, it moves like a snail's pace. I'm just over that.
Right.
State is where it happens. We are a constitutional republic. The people that we put into office affect our lives. There's a new effort to get rid of VSAs. They're starting to run signatures just Friday, it was announced, because they haven't been able to beat it in the legislature.
Right.
Why haven't they been able to beat it in the legislature? Because pro-education, pro-parental rights people are the committee chairs, once again, and are in the legislature and have the majority.
Right.
We have to hold on to the majority.
Yeah.
We have to. And I just urge everybody
Yeah.
who wants to get involved. I mean, get a hold of me. We'll put
Yeah.
you to work.
And we'll link the website for Center for Arizona Policy. But yeah, that's a perfect example. So something like school choice, and how many people are on ESAs in Arizona now?
I think it was 100,000 last month, so we've probably exceeded that by now.
So all of those people, and not only that, but people who go to charter schools and Christian schools and use tax credits and all of that, right? So that's even a bigger number that's there. But that is something that has very little to do with the federal level, right? So that has nothing to do with President Trump or anything that's going on at the federal level. That is all things that are happening at the state and local level.
Right.
And those are the things that are at risk, right? So not to put, I'm not trying to, be doom and gloom fear here, but trying to wake people up to the fact that those are the things that we're talking about that directly affect our life, that affect our ability here as a church to do ministry.
Absolutely.
To minister to human trafficking victims, to foster care. Those kinds of things are decisions that are made at the state level. And so that's what's going to be on the ballot in 2026. So it's really, really crucial. If I can get nothing across,
It really is.
I'm literally like pleading with you on my hands and knees.
I have
Pay
meetings on this
attention.
every week. There are coalition partners
Yes.
that we go alongside and that come alongside us, and we are working really hard. Of course, we have to raise money to do
Yeah.
it. The process is not always fun and pretty, but it's absolutely necessary.
So important.
We have to hold on, and if we can flip some of these constitutional seats, the governor,
Yes.
think what we could do is flipping the attorney general.
Attorney General is the one I talk
it's
about.
systematic.
She's terrible.
I don't even want to get into it.
Right.
Um,
I've spoken quite a bit.
We'd be here for another hour. Like I said, you and I could talk for hours. I mean, we should probably just go have coffee
Right,
after
I
this.
know.
But seriously, it is so important. If there's one
Yeah.
thing I can stress, I want you to come down and learn how the legislature works and learn what we do
Yeah.
and be a part of that. Those coalitions are so important, but the political side, when you're in an election year, it just takes the cake. You have got to be dialed in. You cannot
Yeah.
rest.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that you're registered to vote. Okay.
And that you
a
know
lot of
what's
people
on
like to
you.
talk about how conservatives, the Republican numbers are really, really great. And I think that's fantastic. The problem with that is they have to vote.
Right. They have to actually go out and vote.
How
yeah.
many of them can we get to the polls? That's the most
Right.
important thing. And we're going to be working really hard on that.
Yeah,
So.
sounds great. Well, I am too. I am always sounding that alarm about state level, and just this election year really is important. So, yeah, well, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're
This was
welcome.
great. Like I said, we could talk for 6 more hours on all of this stuff, but I appreciate you coming here today.
It was so much fun, and I'll come back anytime. But thank you.
Thank you.
And check out Center for Arizona Policy and see
I
what
will
we
link
do.
it in the show notes. You can always get that information from me as well because I'm connected to that.
Yes, she's awesome. So
Thank you for being here, and thank you for joining us on Into the Fire, powered by Dream City Church.
You can listen to this podcast on Apple and Spotify and follow us on social media to find all the info on the show notes. To learn more about Dream City Church, visit our website at dreamcitychurch.us. Thanks for listening.